Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rossy Rivera, and for today's 2022 Advent Calendar gift, I am sharing how to make this little water well for our nativity set. I hope you like this project. Let's get started. Now, to begin, we need 1/2 of a tablespoon in cold porcelain clay in this gray color. I'm just kneading that thoroughly, shaping it into a ball, and then making it a little bit flat. Now I'm going to start giving it in a more organic shape. Think sort of like a kidney or a kidney bean. And this is going to be the base for our well. Now going in with my bone tool, I'm just going to make some lines. You can also use a toothpick for this, or as you can see, a star tool works as well. Now I'm going to make sort of a stone walk design here just by adding some lines and then smoothing them down like that. And just doing that all around the surface. Remember, you can find my cold porcelain recipe here on the channel as well. I'll leave a link on the top right card and also on the description box below. Now the design for this stone walk is completely up to your own taste. This is just a guideline. And now I'm just going to make sure we go all the way to the edge here so they do look like stones. And I'm going back in with my rubber brush just to smooth down those lines. And remember, if you're going for a more rustic style, you don't need to smooth this down. Just like that right there. Now I'm going to go in with some powder toners, in this case in the color brown. And in my case, I'm using actually chalk pastels, and I just grinded them. And now I'm just adding that color very lightly all around, especially on those little lines we made earlier, without covering all of the gray. Now going with some black chalk pastels as well, highlighting those indents a bit more. Going over any lines we need to go one more time. This is more of a very dark brown color that resembles black. You can also use black directly if you prefer. And just doing that all around. Once we have that all set, it's going to look like this. Now we're going to add some of the moss we already made earlier, much earlier on this Advent Calendar journey. So I just have this set aside, and then adding some glue, I'm going to attach some of these pieces to our base. And I'm just adding a little bit so I can start working on the rest of the well. And once we're done with everything, I might have to go back in and just add some more moss touches. Now I'm cutting this toothpick to 6.5 centimeters. This wooden stick, sorry, not a toothpick. This is what you would use for kebabs. And I just cut 2 of those pieces, 6.5 centimeters long. And now we're going to cover everything in brown clay. So on both of these, I need them to be very thick. So I'm measuring 1 teaspoon of brown clay to cover each one of them. I just kneaded that thoroughly, shaped it into a ball, stretched it out, and then inserted a toothpick into that clay cylinder. Now I'm going to leave a small piece, roughly 1/2 centimeter at the top, or I should say at the bottom, since that's what we're going to use to attach everything to the base. And remember, it doesn't have to be perfect since we're resembling some more of a rustic wood, and we're leaving a bit of an excess at the top. and then cutting it in half from the top to the toothpick and making this sort of branch that would be sort of like it's branching out into two pieces, so we can add the top part of our well over it. Now I'm going to go back in and give it some texture. Remember sort of what we did for the stable back on day 0 of our advent calendar that we made in preparation. So now I'm just adding that texture all around, making some lines following the natural lines of the wood, making sure everything's nicely blended so we don't see the toothpick. Just like that. Adding some texture, some more organic lines here, some curves. Making sure the log looks as natural as possible. Just like that. Now I'm going to go in with some toner, but before I do that, I'm just going to make some cuts here at the top, make it flat. And then going back in with the bone tool just to highlight that branch separation. And now I can go in with my powder toners. Again, in this case, I'm using chalk pastels for this. Just using a very dark brown to make those lines on our wood stand out. And just brushing all around. Just like that. Now I'm going to add a little bit of glue at the bottom here where we had that toothpick sticking out. And then insert it into the base. Making sure it's nicely glued together, adding a little bit of pressure at the bottom. And it's gonna look like that. Now for the other one, we're going to do the same thing and wrap around this toothpick. I just need this one to be a little bit thinner. This one's going to have to be at the top right here. So I'm going to cut our toothpick just a little bit. I'm going to leave this one at 5 centimeters. So I'm cutting up 1.5 centimeters. Just like that. So now I'm just wrapping this around the clay and then cutting off all the excess. Again, pulling the clay away from the sides to get rid of that excess there. And then smoothing everything down. I'm just measuring there for reference. I need this one to be a little bit thinner. Cut it again. And just making sure the little wooden stick won't stick out from the clay. And then I'm going to do the same thing and just add some texture all around. Keeping that organic look with some curves and lines combined. Like that. And then we're just going to go in with some powder toners to make the colors stand out. And I'm going to be using that same brown color and then just lightly brushing all over our wooden log. Just like that. And now we're actually going to make the well. So instead of doing it the same way we would usually do it, which is with stone, I'm going to make it with bricks. Using the same color that we use for the base, I'm going to measure out 1 teaspoon of gray clay. and I'm going to cut it into pieces to get sort of the stones out. The stones are bricks. So I just cut that in half, then cut it in half again. And some of these I'm going to cut them into half again. There we go. So I just cut 4 of those 8 pieces in half, so I got 8 more pieces out of here. So now I'm just making this sort of rounded rectangles, just trying to keep that rustic shape going. And we can make them flat as we add them onto our base. I'm just going to add some glue in this sort of circular shape to make the well. And we're just going to very slowly stacking them in, alternating between smaller and larger bricks or stones. And we don't need it to be a perfect circle since we're focusing on more of a natural shape. Just doing that all around. And now we have this circle right here. So I'm going to add one more line of glue over the stones. And then just alternating at the top. So where 2 stones meet, I'm going to add a new one on this second layer. Again, trying not to shape it too strongly since we're going for that organic look. And I'm just going to measure another teaspoon of gray clay. And then I'm going to cut that into smaller pieces. So half, half, half again. And then cutting some of these into half again. And then just start to make my bricks. I'm going to add a bigger one over here, making it a little bit more flat, like that. Now I'm just alternating between larger and smaller stones. And that's just to make the structure look sort of natural. So it makes sense that the structure wouldn't collapse on itself. I'm just adding some more over here, stacking them on this same column right here. And then a bit more glue on top of that. But since we're going a little bit too up high, it's going to move. So to prevent that, I'm going to get a toothpick and then just insert them into this stone column. I'm adjusting everything again. Just like that. Now at the top here, I'm going to cut off the excess toothpick. And then just continue adding some more stones on this side. And then just continue doing what we've been doing so far. If we make smaller ones, they can wrap nicely around the toothpick. If we make a larger one, we just insert it into the toothpick. And we just keep doing this all the way to the top. Once we have that all set, it's going to look like this. And now we're going to add one more layer of stones, but only on this area around the column. And I'm just placing them again, alternating into those spaces. As you can see, you don't need to cut it in half and then half again. You can just calculate it. The measurements are just there as a small help in case you want a more consistent measurement. So now I'm just going to add some glue to the center of our well, and then I'm adding a small piece of blue clay inside the well to get it to actually have that water and make it look like we have water. I just added a little bit of pressure to make sure the clay would stick to the bottom. And then I'm just going to go in with this blue eyeshadow to give it a little bit more color. Just lightly brushing it all over the clay to give it a little bit more depth. Now I'm going to go over our little stones with some brown toners. I'm using a lighter shade here so they're not too dark. And then just going all around them, making those lines and the spaces stand out. And again, going in with that either a dark brown or some black toners to make some of those spaces between the stones stand out even more. Just like that. Now I'm going to have to clean up my area since I just spread those toners a little bit all over the place. But now that it's all ready, it's going to look like this. And I'm going to measure 1/8 of a teaspoon in this lighter brown, another 1/8 of a teaspoon in the same color as the log, and another 1/8 in gray clay to make the bucket. Now for this, I'm just going to make it into a cylinder, stretch it out, and then using a toothpick, I'm going to wrap it around in the clay. Wrapping that nicely and then giving it some texture. Giving it some texture just like a wooden log or branch. I'm just going to add it to the side here. Pressing on it just a little bit so it can blend nicely. And then just blending it in a bit more with my tools. Now we're going to make the bucket. And before they were made out of wood, not metal. So I'm just going to make it like this. I'm just shaping that into a ball. Then making it more of a drop shape. Then making a hole at the widest point to stretch it a little bit more. Smoothing down the edges here, and then making some lines all around since this is going to be made of wood, and adding some smaller lines just for some texture, just like this. So some are lighter, some are more defined. And making sure we also do this around the edges. And now this piece, I'm going to press down on it so it's a bit more flat and a bit shorter. Just like that. And now I'm going to go all around and just add some metal detailing. So I make this into a very long string, and then using my rolling pin, I'm going to make it flat, just like that. I'm just going to even this out using my scissors. and then go all around our little bucket and cut where both ends meet, and then just blend that out. Now I'm going to do one more of these, a little bit lower and a bit smaller. Just like this. And then just wrap it all around our bucket. And same thing, cutting it where both ends meet. So it looks like this. And now I'm just going to add some small indents or dots. So it looks like nails. And then I'm going to go in and just add some toners. I'm going to use a little bit of brown and then just going all around our bucket. Again, highlighting these lines at the top so we can tell they're separate boards. And now with a small piece of string, I'm using jute. We're just going to make a small roll and then cut it. And this is going to be sort of the string that's used to lower the bucket into the well. So I'm just adding a little bit of glue on both sides of our bucket. Cutting it here, wrapping it around, securing it into both sides. I'm just adding a little bit of pressure so it blends with the clay. And this is where we're going to be holding it from. Now I'm going to wrap this with the rest of the string or jute, making a knot. Remember, this is going to have to be center in the middle. And then we're going to wrap it around the top board or log here. And I'm going to wrap this around multiple times. But this is a hand well, so instead of a manual well, if you must. So instead of making multiple twists at the top, I'm just going to make a single one, and the tops are going to be on the separate branch. It's just by pulling and letting it fall or drop. So I'm just going to leave that there and then wrap the string a couple of times around my finger and then cut it, leaving a small excess. Going through this string group and then making a small knot over here. And I'm going to hang this group of string here on the branch we left sticking out earlier. Just like that. And now it's going to look like this. Now we're just going to decorate with some extra moss. And now I'm just going to go in and add some glue wherever I want to have some more moss added. So on the stones, on the log that's on the side as a column. And then just getting those small pieces of moss and adding them all around. I'm using small lines so it looks proportionate to the size of the well. And again, this is just proportionate to the size of the rest of our figurines as well. And that's it. Now we have our little water well all ready and set to place it on our nativity set. I hope you liked today's project. My name is Rossy Rivera. Thanks for joining me. Many blessings.